The sleek black car glided into the dealership's parking lot, its glossy surface reflecting the city lights. A woman in her early 40s, dressed in simple yet elegant attire, stepped out, adjusting her sunglasses. Her name was Evelyn Carter, but no one here knew that. Not as the CEO, at least. For the past 15 years, she had built this empire from the ground up, turning a struggling dealership into a chain of luxury showrooms across the country. She had worked tirelessly, understanding every detail of the business. Yet, sitting in her office, reviewing reports, never gave her the full picture. Lately, whispers of mistreatment of customers and arrogant salespeople had reached her ears. She needed to see it herself. Disguised as an ordinary customer, she strolled into the showroom. The space was immaculate, walls lined with gleaming sports cars and luxury sedans, each carrying a price tag that could make an average person dizzy. Salespeople stood in clusters, chatting amongst themselves, their polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. She approached the nearest car, running her fingers over the smooth exterior of a silver convertible. A young salesman, probably in his late 20s, noticed her but made no move to approach. Instead, he smirked and nudged his colleague. "Looks like we have a window shopper," he muttered just loud enough for her to hear. His name tag read Mark. His colleague, a taller man with slicked back hair, glanced over and chuckled. Probably lost. People like her don't buy cars like these. Evelyn remained composed, her expression unreadable. She turned and walked toward the front desk. "Excuse me," she said politely to the receptionist. "I'd like some assistance." The receptionist, a young woman who looked overwhelmed, hesitated before nodding. She was about to call someone over when Mark sauntered forward, an exaggerated sigh escaping his lips. "All right, let's get this over with." "What exactly are you looking for?" he asked, crossing his arms. Evelyn noted his dismissive tone, but played along. "I'm interested in a luxury sedan. Something with excellent mileage and a smooth drive." Mark scoffed. "Uh-huh. And what's your budget? Because these aren't your everyday cars." She tilted her head. "I'd like to see the best you have." Mark exchanged a knowing glance with his colleague, clearly entertained. "Look, these cars aren't cheap. Maybe you'd be more comfortable at one of those mid-range dealerships across town." Evelyn suppressed the urge to smirk. "Are you saying I can't afford a car here?" "I'm saying," he replied slowly, as if explaining to a child, "that people in your situation don't usually shop here." The insult hung in the air. Evelyn felt a slow burn in her chest, but she remained calm. She had built this business to be a place where all customers were treated with respect. The fact that her own employees thought they could humiliate someone based on appearance alone was unacceptable. She exhaled, forcing a smile. I think I'll take a look around on my own." Mark shrugged. "Suit yourself." As she walked past the other salespeople, she noticed a young man at the far end of the showroom, nervously adjusting his tie. He seemed hesitant, as if he didn't quite belong. She decided to test him. "Excuse me," she called out. He turned quickly, his name tag reading Daniel. "Oh, yes, ma'am. How can I help you?" Evelyn smiled. "I'm looking for a luxury sedan. Something elegant, but with power." Daniel immediately straightened, his expression shifting from nervous to professional. "Absolutely. We have a few models that might interest you. Would you like me to walk you through the options?" She nodded, as he guided her through the showroom, explaining each feature with genuine enthusiasm. She noted the stark contrast between him and the others. He wasn't dismissive, nor did he assume anything about her financial status. Meanwhile, Mark and his friend snickered from the other side of the room. "New guy's wasting his time," Mark muttered. "She'll never buy." Evelyn ignored them. Instead, she allowed Daniel to show her different models, appreciating his professionalism. After about 30 minutes, she finally turned to him. "Daniel, I think I've made my decision." He nodded. "Great. Which one are you interested in?" She smiled. "The black one over there." His eyes widened. "That's one of our most expensive models." She reached into her handbag and pulled out a sleek, black card. "I'd like to pay in full." Daniel blinked. "Oh, yes, of course. I'll get the paperwork started." As he hurried off, the laughter from Mark's corner died abruptly. He and his colleague exchanged panicked looks. A moment later, Daniel returned with the paperwork, still looking slightly stunned. As Evelyn signed, she glanced up at Mark, whose face had turned pale. Before he could sneak away, she spoke, her voice carrying a quiet authority. "Mark." His body stiffened. Yes." She removed her sunglasses and tucked them into her pocket. For the first time, she allowed herself to stand with the confidence she had earned over the years. "I'm Evelyn Carter." The color drained from Mark's face entirely. "The owner of this showroom," she continued smoothly, "and the entire chain." A heavy silence filled the room. The other employees, who had been pretending not to listen, now gaped openly. Mark stumbled over his words. I didn't." "You assumed," she interrupted. "You judged a customer before even speaking to them properly. You insulted someone in our showroom." His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. She turned to Daniel, her expression softening. "And you," she said warmly, "treated me with respect, without assumption. That's the kind of service I expect in my company." Daniel looked like he wasn't sure whether to be honored or terrified. Evelyn straightened, turning back to Mark. "As for you," she said, her voice colder now, "I have a policy. Disrespectful employees have no place here." Mark stammered, his arrogance now replaced with sheer panic. "Please, I didn't mean." But she had already turned away. "Security will escort you out." Two uniformed men stepped forward as Mark took a step back, his face red with humiliation. She looked around at the rest of the staff. "Let this be a lesson," she said calmly. "We treat every customer with respect, no matter how they look when they walk through that door." With that, she handed her card to Daniel. "Have my card delivered to my estate by tonight." "Yes, ma'am," he said, his voice filled with a new level of admiration. She walked toward the exit, pausing only once, to glance back at the stunned faces behind her. The doors closed behind her as she stepped outside, the cool air greeting her like an old friend. She had come here looking for the truth, and she had found it. And now, changes were coming. Big ones. Evelyn took a deep breath as she walked to the curb, the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. She had always prided herself on the company she built, but today had been an eye-opener. If this kind of arrogance and mistreatment was happening in one of her showrooms, how many others were infected with the same toxicity? As she waited for her driver, she turned and glanced through the glass windows of the showroom. Inside, Mark was still standing there, frozen in shock as security loomed beside him. Other employees whispered amongst themselves, their expressions a mixture of fear and respect. Daniel, on the other hand, remained professional, carefully reviewing the purchase details. Evelyn smirked. At least there was still some promise in this place. A sleek black Mercedes pulled up, and the driver quickly stepped out to open the door for her. Just as she was about to slide in, she heard hurried footsteps behind her. "Ms. Carter." She turned. Daniel stood there, slightly out of breath. I just wanted to say thank you," he said, "for recognizing my effort. I honestly didn't expect you to be, well, you." Evelyn tilted her head. "Because of how I looked?" His face turned red. No, not at all. I just mean, the way you handled yourself, the way you tested us. I've never seen a CEO actually care enough to do something like that." She studied him for a moment before nodding. A leader should always know what happens on the ground. Sitting in an office, reviewing numbers, means nothing if the people running the business are ruining its reputation. Daniel nodded. "I understand now." Evelyn hesitated before speaking again. "How long have you been here?" "Just a few months," he admitted. "I transferred from another branch. Honestly, I was starting to think I didn't belong. The way the senior salesmen act, the way they treat certain customers, it's not what I thought this company stood for." Evelyn's gaze hardened. "It isn't. And that's about to change." He looked at her, intrigued. "What do you mean?" She smiled faintly. "Let's just say, Mark won't be the last person leaving this place." Daniel swallowed but said nothing. He could see the determination in her eyes. Evelyn pulled out her business card and handed it to him. "If you ever have any concerns, call me directly. And one more thing, you're getting a promotion." His eyes widened. What? You're exactly the kind of salesperson I want leading my teams, she said. Effective immediately. You're now the senior sales consultant for this showroom. Do your job well, and you'll rise even higher. Daniel was speechless. Now, she said, stepping into her car, I have work to do. As the door closed and the car pulled away, Evelyn's mind was already racing. This wasn't just about one dealership anymore. She needed to go deeper. By the time she arrived at her private estate, the sun had begun to set. The moment she stepped inside, she pulled off her blazer and threw it onto the couch, exhaling sharply. She didn't waste time. Grabbing her laptop, she logged into the company's internal system, accessing reports, customer reviews, and employee records. If the arrogance she witnessed today existed in one showroom, it meant that somewhere along the line, bad culture had seeped into her company. One by one, she examined complaints that had been dismissed, emails from customers claiming they had been treated unfairly. She saw reports of high turnover rates in certain locations, with good employees leaving while the arrogant ones stayed. Her jaw tightened. It was worse than she thought. A knock at the door made her look up. Her assistant, Oliver, stepped in. Ms. Carter, your new car has arrived. She had nearly forgotten. She stood and followed Oliver outside. There, parked in her driveway, was the same black luxury sedan she had purchased earlier. But more than that, Daniel himself was standing beside it. She raised an eyebrow. Daniel. He straightened. I insisted on delivering it personally, ma'am. She folded her arms. That's not exactly standard procedure. I know, he admitted. But after what happened today, I couldn't just walk away like nothing changed. She leaned against the car. Go on. He hesitated, then sighed. I admire what you did today. The way you handled Mark, it was incredible. But if he was that confident in treating a customer like that, it means the problem is much bigger than one bad employee. Evelyn gave him a sharp look. You noticed too. He nodded. I see it every day. The best salesmen aren't necessarily the ones who know cars the best. They're the ones who manipulate, intimidate, and act like they own the place. The customers they can't squeeze money out of, they mock. The ones they can, they sweet talk until they sign overpriced contracts. Evelyn exhaled slowly. I appreciate your honesty. I figured if you went through the trouble of coming in undercover, it means you actually care about fixing this, he said. So, I want to help. If you're really serious about cleaning up the company, I want in. A slow smile spread across her lips. Daniel, she said, how do you feel about going undercover yourself? His eyes widened. What? You're already in the system. No one would suspect a thing. If I start investigating directly, people will just hide their behavior. But if you keep working like normal, observing, and reporting back to me. She trailed off. He straightened, understanding what she meant. You want me to be your eyes and ears. Exactly. There was a long silence. Then, finally, Daniel nodded. I'll do it. Evelyn extended her hand. Welcome to the real team. He shook it. The next morning, Evelyn arrived at the headquarters of Carter Luxury Motors, her corporate office. She had barely stepped inside when Oliver approached her. Ms. Carter, the regional managers are requesting a meeting. Apparently, there's some concern about your visit to the showroom yesterday. She smirked. Good. Schedule the meeting. Let's see what they have to say. 2 hours later, she sat at the head of a long glass conference table. Across from her sat 5 regional managers, each responsible for overseeing multiple dealerships. Ms. Carter, one of them began, we heard about what happened at the downtown showroom. Of course, we respect your authority, but we believe firing an experienced salesman over a small misunderstanding might have been excessive. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. A misunderstanding? Yes, another chimed in. Mark was one of our top-performing salesmen. His approach may have been a little, bold, but that's what makes him successful. Evelyn leaned forward. So, in your opinion, insulting a potential customer and treating them like trash is an acceptable approach? The managers exchanged nervous glances. Ms. Carter, the first one said carefully, we all know that not every customer is serious. Our sales team has to filter out the ones who waste time. Evelyn nodded slowly. I see. And how exactly do they filter them? No one answered. She tapped a manicured finger on the table. Here's what's going to happen. Effective immediately. Every showroom is being audited. Customer interactions will be monitored. And any employee caught treating customers with disrespect will be terminated. No exceptions. But she cut them off. Additionally, I'll be making unannounced visits to various locations. I suggest you all start reviewing your employees very carefully. If I catch anything like what I saw yesterday, it won't just be the salesmen losing their jobs. It'll be the managers who enable them. Silence. Evelyn stood. That will be all. One by one, the managers stood and left, their faces pale. She exhaled and glanced at her phone. A new message from Daniel. Daniel, you were right. The problem is everywhere. I have a lot to report. She smirked. This was just the beginning. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, staring at Daniel's message on her phone. The weight of what she had uncovered was pressing down on her, but she wasn't one to back down. If anything, it fueled her. She replied with a simple message, "Meet me tonight. We're taking this to the next level." The moment she sent it, she called Oliver into her office. "Cancel all my meetings for the rest of the day," she instructed. Oliver frowned. Everything. And bring me the full employee records of all our senior sales staff across the country. I want performance reviews, customer complaint reports, and resignation records of former employees. He hesitated. Are you planning to fire them all? Evelyn smirked. Only the ones who deserve it. As Oliver left, she turned her chair to face the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out over the city. This company was her legacy. It had her name on it. She refused to let a pack of arrogant salespeople destroy what she had built. That evening, Evelyn arrived at a small cafe on the outskirts of town. It was the kind of place no one would suspect a billionaire CEO to be, dimly lit, quiet, and tucked between rundown buildings. But that was exactly why she had chosen it. Daniel was already there, sitting in a corner booth, a folder in front of him. Evelyn slid into the seat across from him. What do you have for me? Daniel pushed the folder toward her. Everything. She flipped it open. Inside were detailed notes, hidden camera footage, customer complaints that had been ignored, and reports from former employees who had been bullied or forced to resign by toxic managers. This is worse than I thought, she muttered. Daniel nodded. It's not just one or two showrooms, Evelyn. It's the culture that's been allowed to fester. The top-performing salesmen? Most of them are just like Mark. And the managers? They protect them because they bring in sales, even if it means scamming customers. Evelyn exhaled slowly. I should have seen this sooner. You trusted the wrong people, Daniel said. But now that you know, what are you going to do? She closed the folder and looked at him. I'm going to burn it all down and rebuild it from scratch. Daniel's eyes widened. Wait, what? I'm not just firing a few bad employees, she said. I'm purging the entire system. That means showrooms, management, even some of the regional heads. Daniel swallowed. That's going to be a bloodbath. Evelyn smirked. Exactly. The next morning, Evelyn arrived at Carter Luxury Motors headquarters and called for an emergency board meeting. By noon, the entire executive team, regional managers, and showroom heads were gathered in the massive conference room. Tension filled the air. They all knew something big was coming, but none of them expected what happened next. Evelyn entered the room with Oliver trailing behind her, carrying stacks of documents. She took her seat at the head of the table. Let's get straight to the point. Oliver began distributing the documents, copies of Daniel's reports, customer complaints, and internal messages between salesmen mocking customers. Silence. Some managers turned pale as they flipped through the pages. Others shifted uncomfortably, realizing their careers were hanging by a thread. Evelyn leaned forward. Over the past few weeks, I've conducted an independent investigation into how my company operates. What I found was nothing short of disgusting. She locked eyes with each of them. Customers being insulted. Employees being bullied out of their jobs. Salesmen manipulating buyers into overpriced deals. And the worst part? Management turning a blind eye because it boosted profits. One of the regional managers cleared his throat. "Ms. Carter, if I may." "You may not," she snapped. "I've already made my decision." She pulled out a thick stack of papers and dropped them onto the table. "These are termination letters. Effective immediately. Every senior salesman involved in unethical practices is fired. Any manager who protected them, gone. Any regional director who ignored customer complaints, pack your things." A few gasps echoed through the room. One of the showroom managers stood up, his face red. "You can't just fire everyone. We have quotas to meet, we have." Evelyn cut him off with a glare. "I don't care about quotas. I care about integrity. This company was built on trust, and I refuse to let parasites like you destroy it." He clenched his jaw, but said nothing. She turned to Oliver. "Effective immediately. Daniel will be promoted to oversee the restructuring of our sales teams. Any new hires will be vetted thoroughly, and every showroom will be monitored to ensure this never happens again." Daniel, sitting near the back of the room, looked up in shock. "Wait, what?" Evelyn smirked. "You wanted to help, didn't you?" Slowly, Daniel nodded. "I did. And I will." The room remained silent. No one dared to challenge her now. Evelyn stood. "If anyone in this room thinks they can get away with corrupt practices, now's your chance to leave. Because if I catch anyone pulling these stunts again, I'll make sure they never work in this industry again." Silence. One by one, the guilty ones lowered their heads. She turned on her heel and walked toward the door. Before exiting, she glanced back. "Consider yourselves lucky. If I had my way, I'd be pressing criminal charges." Then she left. Over the next few weeks, Carter Luxury Motors underwent a massive transformation. News of Evelyn's crackdown spread like wildfire, and customers who had once been mistreated started returning. Daniel took his new role seriously, ensuring that every new hire was trained in ethical sales practices. Showrooms that had once been filled with arrogant salesmen were now staffed with professionals who genuinely cared about their customers. As for Mark, he tried suing the company for wrongful termination, but Evelyn's legal team crushed him with undeniable evidence of his misconduct. One evening, as Evelyn stood on the rooftop of her headquarters, looking over the city, she heard a familiar voice behind her. "You really did it," Daniel said, stepping forward. "You changed everything." She smirked. "I told you I would." Daniel chuckled. "So what's next?" Evelyn turned to him, her eyes gleaming. "Now," she said, "now we take this company to heights it's never seen before." And with that, she walked away, leaving behind a legacy that would never be tainted again.